Namo Shakyamunaya Buddhaya. Dear Sangha, today is the 15th of May 2022. Today we have a coincidence that is very interesting. That is on the 15th of May of the Western calendar. It also matches with the 15th of April in the lunar calendar. So like the lunar calendar, or with the rotation of the moon. So the Easterners, we use the cycle of the moon. We use the calendar according to the cycle of the moon. And this is very interesting because the moon affects human beings not as closely as the sun. It means that the moon is not present every day, and yet it affects human beings very much. So, also, the moon doesn't give life to human beings as much as the sun, like sunlight, but it gives the inspiration to us for poetry. Few people talk about the sun in a romantic way, and yet people talk about the moon in a very romantic way. It's like you fall in love with each other and you kneel and make the kneel down and make a vow in front of the moon, not to the sun. So that is why those of us from the East, we use the lunar calendar, and we also celebrate Vesak according to the lunar calendar. But it's been a long time for it to celebrate the Buddha's birthday on the same calendar, like the sun's solar calendar like this. And I thought to myself, it's been a long while that we can have a Buddha celebration on a full moon day like this, because the sun and the moon calendar are in sync this year. It seems that this is very rare, and it takes place only towards the end of 19th century or 20th century, 1940 something, no, 1950 some, that people unified that the Buddha was born on the full moon, on a full moon day. That's the northern tradition, but in the southern tradition, Buddhist tradition, they counted that the Buddha was born on a full moon day, but the calendar was different. Like in Vietnam and in China, the calendar went that the Buddha was born on the 8th of April. And so the moon was not yet full by then. And so when the moon is it's a crescent, it looks fragile in the sky, and when the morning comes, the moon already disappears. You don't see it. So in some Asian countries, they also came with a number that the Buddha was born on the 8th of April. Also the April 8th, then the Buddha also achieved enlightenment. And then when the Buddha entered Nirvana, it was they used the sutra saying that when the Buddha was doing sitting meditation, he saw the rise of the moon of a particular star. And so they figure that out when the Buddha enter nirvana. And so they use the source from his teachings to figure out when he was born and when he entered nirvana. And so the day that he returned to Mother Earth, entered paranirvana, there was a day of a full moon. Of course, we don't know exactly when the Buddha appeared in the world, when he achieved awakening, and was not certain that he entered nirvana on a full moon day. But of course, history has its own way to record events. It's cultural, it's symbolic, and it's also a way to honor a great teacher in the world. And so as we look at history, we see that the people wanted to honor the Buddha with many, they use miracles, miraculous powers to, like for example, they said the Buddha was not born in the usual way. He was born by the side of his mother. So this is, is not realistic. No human being can be born on the side of his mother. And so they'll add magical things into it, and it's really truly legendary. And they said that when the Buddha was born, he did not cry like everybody else. He took 7 steps on the 7 lotus flowers instead. And so that's not enough. And the Buddha, they even painted the picture and say, one hand he pointed the earth, and the other hand he pointed the earth and say, between the earth and the sky, I am the one unique. And then the angels from the heavens come down and shower him. And so this sounds miraculous. It carries like the Buddha was a god. And so if we are still naive and we think, how can I ever practice and be like the Buddha? I'm so ordinary. I'm born in a normal way from my mother. And I'm also ordinary. I didn't point the earth or the sky or anything. And that's why I'm drowned in my sadness and my suffering. I just go in circles in life waiting for death to take me away. I cannot practice. And so if we are naive, we will think like that. But if we are a little more intelligent, and then we will understand that all cultures in this world, they always polished. The talented, the great beings, the leaders, and higher than the leaders, there are religious leaders. And so this is something we have more than enough capacity to reflect upon the Buddha's life, to look at his life in a practical way, and to understand the Eastern culture in order to honor a great religious leader. They had to do it like that. So it's mythical, it's poetic. The people in the previous generations, they wrote it like that, so to show their respect and honor. It's not like not like legendary stories. So for us to be in this modern time, with the eye of a practitioner, we also recognize this. And then I'll give you a little more historical background, so you see that this was like that 1,000 years before, like the Vietnamese Zen masters in that time, in the King dynasty, the Thượng dynasty. They didn't have internet. They didn't have a social network this vast. They also did not have like a source of research from the scientists, archaeologists, etc. But back then they already said all this. The Zen masters back then already say these are not real. These are painted by humans. For example, Zen master Thằng Nghê, and that was the disciple of the Zen master Thằng Chiếu, and that was in the Lý dynasty, and that was more than 1,000 years ago in Vietnam. And so the disciple asked the teacher, so those enlightened ones, do they have the advantages? It means that those who attain the path with the great mind, are they like ordinary people? Are they born in a normal way, and do they die in a normal way? And so the Zen master Thượng Chiếu, at that time, the kings admire him, and a whole palace, they follow this teacher. And he said, of course, you can attain the path, but you are normal, ordinary, like everybody else. But then the disciple Thằng Nghê said, but history, the recording of in history is different. And the teacher said, well, how is it different? And then the disciple said, well, they don't die. And then the teacher said, who told you that? And Thằng Nghê, the disciple, said, the Chinese history said that Bodhidharma, when he died, when he entered Nirvana, people let his body be in the coffin, and after that, an ambassador from another country, and on the way back to his homeland, he passed by this mountain, like when he passed by, like after Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, that was in that area. And people said that when this ambassador passed by and he met Bodhidharma, and he was walking like in the air, passing by on top of the trees. And so this ambassador asked him, where are you going? And Bodhidharma said, I'm going back to India. And Bodhidharma said, go home quickly because your king has also passed away. And then Tống Vân, the name of the ambassador, when he arrived home, then he also found out that the king had passed away, and Bodhidharma had passed away a long time before that. And so there came the legend, and then when they undo his coffin, then he saw they didn't see his body anymore. There was only one shoe that was remained. And so that story, so in the Zen stories, everybody knows about that, about Bodhidharma is one of the foremost Zen masters in China. And so sometimes when you see a statue of Bodhidharma, he's carrying a stick, and there's only one shoe at the end of his stick. And so when the Zen master heard his student Thằng Nghê recounted the story, the teacher didn't say it's wrong or right, and he only said one thing. He said, lying to the world. What does it mean? It's very harsh statement. I'm just explaining to you. He said, do you know that a dog, when it barks incorrectly, and then the whole village, all the dogs will will bark, will follow suit. And so when a person who records it incorrectly, then everybody will spread that rumor. It's just like a dog that when it barks, they may see like a ghost, a shadow, and then it barks loudly, and then all other dogs will start to bark. And so this is a very harsh statement, belittling those historians who recorded that. So this is to tell us that the true teachers, when they attain the path, they also saw what was true and what was only painted upon the enlightened ones. So this for us to see the true historical background of the Buddha. And of course, there were stories recorded about him that were poetic, that were magical. But we want to ask, what did people want to transmit to us? They wanted to say that the Buddha was present in this life in a very extraordinary way. That's worthwhile to understand. The second thing that I would like to share with you, also coming from the historical source about Chinese Zen masters, what's unique about the Chinese culture is that they also had a religion very deeply ingrained in the culture. Sometimes it became dogmatic or superstitious, but there was a branch from this. It's very thiền tông đốn ngộ. It's like Zen, and it was very pragmatic. And people who enter the Zen tradition, they don't accept the magical powers, miraculous powers. They don't accept, superstition or worshipping, but they want to experience directly. They practice and to experience the fruit of the practice directly. It means that whatever that promises you on the other side of the tunnel, there will be light. They don't believe in. Those who are in the Zen tradition, we want to experience the fruit right here and right now, not at the end of my life. And so the Zen masters in China back then also, they had these unique ways. So when we read the poems that they leave behind, we'll see them quite strange. Sometimes their speech is a bit harsh. It's a bit like gangsters. One of those that had koans that calls those people who admire the Buddha as full of magical powers that cause them, stir them up. It means that when they the people who believe that the Buddha was born and took 7 steps and pointed the earth and pointed the sky and say, I'm the only one between this earth and the sky. Then there was a Zen master, Văn Môn Văn Hiển. He said like this: if I were present in that moment, I will hit the Buddha with one stick, then he would not cause such trouble to the world. So this is a statement that is a very strong from a Zen master to say like that about the Buddha. I'm kidding a little bit. Zen master isn't afraid of sickness and death, but when you go to Vietnam, you're afraid of the police. Because the rules there are different from here, the laws there. So a Zen master can walk everywhere in the world. You're not afraid of anybody, but you should be afraid when you go to Vietnam. So this Zen master, Văn Môn, when he made that statement, it's quite interesting. And so in the Zen literature, the teachings, they repeated this statement from Master Văn Môn. And what he said was not different from the Master Thượng who said about the dog that bark incorrectly, then all other dogs will follow suit. Sủa láo, like like a dog that barks, and then the whole village, all the dogs will bark as well. And so these two Zen masters, one is a Zen master from Vietnam more than 1,000 years ago, and the other one is from China, but they both say the same thing. They want to strip off the flowery images, the miraculous powers from the Buddha, so that we could see the Buddha as a human being, as a person like all of us, and yet his enlightenment, his insights are deep, so that we can learn and we can practice to be awakened and enlighten ourselves. So we ask ourselves, what do the old people want to what did they want to transmit to us? Deep behind their messages, that's what's important, is that the Buddha nature is in us, and we can learn and practice as well. And so these Zen masters were very practical. They saw the Buddha having three bodies. One body is this flesh body, and then the Dharma body, that's his teaching, that's his practice, and this Dharma body, is also present in his students, those who can practice and taste peace and happiness and use that as the standard in their lives. And they can maintain the teachings of the Buddha and to transmit the stream of wisdom until now, so that we can receive the teachings as ordinary human beings, full of worries and sadness and confusion. And yet when we meet the Dharma, we practice and we can become, when we can be happy. So that's the transformation body of the Buddha. That's the second body, the transformation. And the third body of the Buddha is the Dharma body. It's invisible to us, and yet it's present in each one of us. That is the enlightenment of the Buddha. It is an energy that is invisible to us, but very much present in every person in this world, in myself, in you, in the arahats, and in the patriarchs, matriarchs from any countries. We all have the energy of awakening buried deeply in each life. And if we are skillful in waking it up, and then we can become also enlightened. So for the Zen masters, with enough insight, they can look at they can see look at history, and they understand. They understand that is what the history wanted to transmit, that the Buddha had these bodies, and so that we, as the latter generation, we can receive the essence, the core of the teachings, and also do the same thing. Then we can overcome just miraculous powers and the flowery images of the Buddha, but we taste directly the taste of the Dharma, so that this an ordinary person can also be a Buddha. So when we hear that we become a Buddha, we think it's like too big, too grand for us. But no, it's not. It just means that we live wholeheartedly so that we can fully realize our quality, our virtue. It depends on our the level of our capacity. One who is perfected, it means the person who has this truth and beauty and wholesomeness. So it depends on your effort, depends on your capacity that you can become one who is valuable, who is admired, who is noble. This truth, wholesomeness, and beauty you realize fully in yourself. And does not mean you have a lot of wealth, you have a high position, and doesn't mean you dress beautifully or drive fancy cars. Sometimes those things cannot say anything about your true value, because a noble person means somebody who has a heart that is loving, that is generous. That person can benefit many people around them, live a life that is not full of misfortune that one can bring upon oneself. And so that's the main point. So we practice to become, we don't practice so that we can become this Zen master or that Zen master or that, oh, I've been, monk or nun for 20 or 30 years. Those shells don't mean anything. We study the teachings of the Buddha so that we can deepen, open our consciousness. We can purify our minds so we can transform jealousy, like unwholesome mental formations. And so the principle is that when you lighten one thing, and then it will deepen another thing. For example, like your unwholesome mental formations, states of mind that are, like unwholesome, cruel, mean, can be transformed, then your wholesome mind will be stronger. So if you understand the teachings of the Buddha, you don't measure the value of a person from the appearance outside, or from the outer shell show, like a big temple or a big this most venerable, that most venerable, but it is measured by the quality of your life. Is it increased? The quality of your life, it means the quality of your beauty, wholesome and truth, is it improved? They are kings, but they are not different from beggars, because they are so greedy. They feel so impoverished. They are rich people, but they are just keepers of their possessions. So whether you ask that person, does that person know how to use their wealth or not? So there's a story about the king and the beggar. What's the difference between them? So there was who was the head of a village, and everybody admired him, and the people in the village asked him, this leader, to go to the king, and the king. So this leader came and the king was prostrating to Allah, and so this leader waited for a long time. And when the ceremony ended, and the the leader, he left. And the king asked him, I heard that you came here. You wanted to make a request of me. You waited for a few hours, but I just finished, and then you walk away. And so this leader said that I came here because I was assigned by my village because they wanted a school. We wanted to ask for your support to build a school, like financial help. But when I saw the ceremony, I think I am wrong. I'm wrong. But then I said that, but I hear you begging begging Allah, so you are just also a beggar yourself. So the king said, what do you mean? And he said, here I heard you say, oh, have me a grander kingdom, more children and more wealth. And so what I think you're not a king, you are a beggar yourself because you're asking Allah for all these things. So from this story, we go back to the Buddha's teachings that the quality or the value of a human's life is not from the outer appearance. It's from your capacity to change your own mind, to change your own to transform your own difficulties, to be whether your life is rich or poor, whether your wholesomeness is rich or poor, the beauty of your behaviors, is it rich or poor? You can be educated, but the way you behave, if it's harsh, if it's crude, that's a different thing. You can be very educated and you can be very unskillful. You can be a practitioner or monastic, but your behavior can also be very poor. So that's different. So if you have transformation from deep inside, then your behavior, your speech will change as well. Otherwise, your behavior will manifest your arrogance, the way you think you are standing in a high place and throwing money down to other people. So these details, if you violate this, you know that as you receive the teachings, you are still very unskillful. And if you can receive the Buddha's teachings and you can help yourself as you live in this life, you become a kinder person, a more loving person. Don't talk about virtues or nothing. Let's say in a simple way that it's a human being. You live, you become a kinder, more loving person. You may live in a very big community. You may be very eloquent, like in front of everybody else. But when you go home and you live with your wife, your husband, your children, your friends, you don't treat them like anything. And so this when in our tradition, we see these people are just thrown away because your practice doesn't reduce, but it just makes you worsen. Reduce means reduce your jealousy, your afflictions, your greed, your anger. You cannot reduce these things. You actually stack up further. Your life is already heavy. You stack up more heavy things. Oh, here I am a Buddhist practitioner. I add more to the label. I have been on this path for long. I know that my teacher is known, etc. So you add more on your burden. The things that you are proud about yourself, these things cannot increase the value of your beauty, wholesomeness, and truth. But it causes you, this is a loss of the value of your life. You are worse than before you became a Buddhist practitioner. I'm not accusing anybody. This is truth. You know that there are those who don't have any names, labels. They don't think they are Buddhist or Catholic or anything. but whoever they meet, they feel they can connect with others. Their love is great, is vast. And yet, by chance, you become a Buddhist practitioner, and then you feel there's a distance between you and those who are non-Buddhist. But this is very unskillful, because you think you're a practitioner and yet you add more burden. If you practice, you should lessen, not add. You have to lessen your jealousy, your discrimination. But if you add more to the burden, then you are losing yourself. Your mind becomes heavy. Your consciousness becomes so heavy, and you cause your loved ones, your friends, to be worried or to be. So it happens. So once you are able to taste the Dharma, we will see that the practice is not simple. But the form of the practice is nothing if the content cannot be shown, the energy of the practice. So that's what I want you to, on this occasion of the Buddha's birthday, we should receive the teaching so that we bathe the Buddha. We bathe the Buddha is like, it's not like you pour the water on this tiny Buddha statue. You shower the Buddha. It means bring the light of contemplation onto yourself, so that you can shave off your ego, the unwholesome mental states that are present in your mind. Transform that. That's what it means to bathe the baby Buddha in ourselves. And the people in the old days, even though they made up things, they wrote all these things about the Buddha, but their main point was still about going back to the depth of the teaching and practicing them. So they did not want us to go into the superstitious way. And so someone wrote this about the Buddha's birthday. I will read it in Chinese and I'll explain it.
Nô nhi tỳ tử, tự ân cần, chỉ thiên chỉ địa, trùng tôn đại, xưng tôn đại, giả thị.
This sign of Vietnamese, the Venerable is reading. It means that the Dharma body of the Buddha, it shines. It's not easy to approach, easy to come close. When you come to the Buddha, the body of a Buddha is easy, or it's easy for you to be close to a teacher, but to understand the teacher, his teachings, in order to apply in your daily life, that's not easy. It requires you to have a certain level of capacity, the mental capacity. If you've never learned how to play an instrument, and if you only hear from like other people, but you cannot play that instrument, you cannot sing that. So it requires you to have a certain capacity, especially if it's classical music. So if you do not have the deep passion to practice, you can listen to whatever movies. It may be easy, but to listen to the Buddha's teachings is not that easy. So this poem says it's not easy for you to approach the Buddha's Dharma body. Those young men and those women who are less understanding, those who follow just the form, the outer show, they They just busy themselves just for fun, so they have something to do in life. And that is why they do not know that one finger pointing the earth, one finger pointing the sky, what it all means. It means that the teachers, they want to transmit the teachings, the practices. They want us to understand the essence of the Buddha's teaching, so to help ourselves and not to get caught in just the flowery descriptions or the miraculous powers. We have to know what's essential and also to apply the Buddha's teachings so that there is this quality of truth, beauty, and wholesomeness. That sounds a bit lengthy. I won't go there, but I want to say something that is close to our life, is that especially in this society, we are full of worries, tension, anxiety, and when the world people look at America, they're quite surprised. People, when people in other countries, when they are unemployed, they will walk for miles to look for work. But in the U.S., people who are unemployed, they actually drive to the place to ask for money. And then also, this is the richest country, one of the richest country in the world, and we have very high standard of living. It's like the place of heaven, and yet people also say that each day Americans consume a few tons of sleeping pills because they cannot sleep, and yet a country that is so rich and people die of heart diseases, of and it's like more than 30% of the people who they have depression, they take medication. So you may feel displeased to hear this, but this is the statistics so far. So what we're seeing here is that if we can apply the teachings of the Buddha, so that we can bring peace and happiness and settlement in our life, full of sensual pleasures. This is very important. So you have this mansion, or you have this beautiful wife, or wonderful husband or children, and yet in your heart there's full of jealousy, of anger, then you are actually living in hell. And we fall into this trap in numerous number. So what's important is that we can apply the teachings. You don't need to do anything more. You do have enough conditions to be happy in this life, and yet but your mind is burning. Then all those numbers. Oh, here's my possession. I'm a millionaire. The houses that I have all these, the people, my loved ones, my children, etc. That's just like thrown away if your mind cannot be happy and peaceful. So we can apply the Buddha's teaching so that there's balance in our life. This is what's important. This is the real matter. And what can we apply so that we can cure this illness, let's call misfortune, this malady that many of us have? Only one practice of meditation that we can already do this. People keep thinking, people say, I breathe. I breathe all my life. I don't need to come to the monastery. So the monks and the nuns can tell me, breathe in, I know I'm breathing in, breathe out, breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. I have done that since I was born. But you don't know that this is the teaching from the enlightened one. the one who had gone through life, one lifetime after another, and he only transmitted the practice and not some kind of dogma. And the Buddha's teachings is really stripped of religion. Is you don't need to have a Buddha statue. Look at this meditation hall. You don't see a statue of a Buddha. So it strips off from religion, from worshiping like a god, and you don't need to have some kind of superstition. If you train yourself to come back to your breathing, you truly touch peace and deep joy inside you. This is practical and it is non-religious. And also, it's very convenient. You don't need to come to this meditation hall but you can be in your room, on your sofa, in your car as you're driving to work, or you're sitting on a rock, you can still breathe. And in all conditions, situations, you can still breathe. If people make you angry, you can get angry, of course, but who would forbid you from breathing? So that you can calm down your own mind. If you are sad, not because of your sadness, your anger, your worry, your anxiety, that you cannot practice. So meditation is a method, and it can eliminate your anxiety, your misfortune, your sadness. It eliminates problems like high blood pressure, like insomnia, etc. I'm not making an advertisement. You just practice and you know this is true. Finally, last thing is that everybody has the breath, has the capacity to breathe. It's already there for you. You don't need to have any kind of program and app that you need to download. You just forget. And when you bring this practice into your daily life, it doesn't stop there. The mindful breathing helps you to increase your lifespan, helps you to recover your health, but it doesn't stop there. But it brings deeper results, deeper benefits when you can look at the breath going in, going out. Then you can also see your anxiety, your thoughts, your disappointment, your despair. You can also see it coming and going, rising and falling. So naturally, that will take place because the breath is invisible and your emotions are also invisible. So if you can learn to see your breath, then you can also see each mental state that comes and goes in you. You can also see your own despair. And when you can see it, what will happen? It sounds ordinary, and yet when you can see your despair, then you see despair is just an object that is outside of you. It comes and goes. It's outside of you. It is not you. Then when it comes, why would you commit suicide for despair if it's coming and going, if it's outside of you? Whatever you can see and is outside of you, you are the observer. You are not the observed. You cannot misidentify that you are the chicken running around. You are looking at the chicken running back and forth. You are the one who is looking at the cloud floating in the sky. Similarly, when you are true practitioners, you will see this is sadness, this is joy, this is anxiety, etc. Then when you can do this, then not only that you are enjoying this life with peace and happiness, whether you are young or old, you are rich or poor, it doesn't matter. You become someone who is full of happiness. And when you can taste the Dharma in this way, then your life, you step on the land of beauty, truth, and wholesomeness. I haven't talked much about truth or wholesomeness, just beauty. your life can manifest beauty. The way you sit, stand, speak, it can manifest. You're somebody who is persuasive, who is beautiful, who's shining. That's the modern term for it. You don't need to be a movie star to be shining. You still shine. You shine with your partner, with your children. You become a soul for your body, for your family to take refuge in. And so, when you remember the day of the Buddha, and when you bathe the Buddha, you need to remember what you really need to do is to deepen yourself with the teachings of the Buddha and apply that. And the Buddha taught only one important thing you need to do is to be aware of your breathing of your body. Then you will be able to see your own mind and take care of your own mind. So this is you're stepping into the door of the saints. This is not ordinary. Those who have gone before us, they already touched that. They already entered the stream. They already became a non-returners. And so many have been able to do that. It's almost 10:30. I'll stop here. Thank you, dear community.
Hôm nay là khuyến mãi